What's going on, you guys? TBR here, back yet again with another King of Fighters Allstar video. And in today's video, we are going to be going over a bunch of news that came out earlier this morning from Netmarble over on the official forum, giving us confirmation that we will be getting Halloween events as early as this week. Yeah, that's right, you guys. These things are coming quick. And we're also going to be reacting to the newest dev video that dropped yesterday. So we got a lot to talk about. But before we get into all of that and more, if you guys are new here to the channel, and you enjoy daily King of Fighters All-Star content such as this, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. And let's go ahead and get into today's video. Now, as always, if you guys want to check any of this information out for yourselves, links will be in the description, but as you guys can see, this is going to be the 1013 new battle card and package info. There's going to be several threads here from CM Yuri we're going to go through, so we're just going to start from the top and work our way down. So this one here is going to be informing us that we are going to be getting a new battle card. Now, this new battle card is going to be available through the Halloween Rush Dungeon exchange shop, and all of this stuff is going to drop later on this evening. So basically, after the reset, we are going to have all of this new content added into the game. I'm assuming we'll probably have a maintenance of some sort, more than likely, but I don't really necessarily see anywhere in here where it confirms that. It might somewhere. We'll probably see it before the end of the video, but more than likely, that's what we're going to be seeing. So as you guys can see here, this is going to be the card that you are going to be able to get from that Rush Dungeon exchange shop, and it is going to be Where is Kyo, and as you guys can see, it is a 6-star option card, and this is the same option card that we showed you guys last week or the week before from the data mines. So we've known that we were going to be getting Halloween information as well as Halloween events at some point over the course of the next couple of weeks. It just happens that we ended up getting it about a week earlier than we would have expected, but at the same time, nice to see that those data mines pulled through once again. We don't have confirmation on what this card does quite yet, but we'll know later on tomorrow. And then, as you guys will see here, we're also going to be getting those new packages. Now, these are also things that were pretty much in those data mines, or at least some of the assets for these packages. I'm not going to get too deep into these in today's video, because we're going to talk more about these tomorrow when we get this actual update. But as you guys can see, you are going to have the chance to pick up selectors for the Halloween Fest fighters as well as the gold fighters. Now, they did not give us any information as to whether or not we are going to be getting new Halloween fighters this year. Chances are probably not at this point if this is all we're getting for Halloween. However, there is a chance that this is just one of a couple of updates for the holiday. We don't know. There might be something next week after we get rid of the current BS banner, but no confirmation on that whatsoever. But there is going to be information on the old Fest fighters from the Halloween events from years past, which we're going to talk about momentarily. So that is what we have here. Like I said, we'll talk about these packages when they're actually added into the game tomorrow. And then, of course, again, this option card, we saw it in the data mines a couple of weeks ago. So that is going to be the first part of this update. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the in-game event notice, where this will actually give us a lot more information we can go over. So if we take a look at the in-game event notice for this one, we are going to see more information on the Halloween Rush Dungeon event. Now, one thing of note is pretty interesting is all of these Halloween events are actually going to be ending on Halloween night. So I found that kind of interesting. I like the way that they timed that out. I always like when they plan things like that. Now, we also are going to have confirmation that the Rush Dungeon exchange shop is going to be running for an extra week like normal. So we will have an extra week in there to exchange in that exchange shop. So pretty good stuff overall. Besides that new card, we don't really have any confirmation on what else is in that exchange shop yet, but you can use your imagination and you'll likely hit most of it. Now, next up here we have the Halloween Witches login bonus, which is not even worth me talking about because there's nothing there that's that important. And then we have the Halloween minigame Protect the Halloween Cake Advent Dungeon. Now, as far as I can remember, this is a rerun of an event. I think we've had this particular Halloween or Protect the Cake event before. I could be wrong. Somebody in the comments can let me know, but I'm pretty sure we've had this particular one in the past. So this is likely a rerun, another event to keep us busy. This one will be running until 10:31 as well, and should be easy enough for everybody to get through without much of a hassle. Now, the next one we're going to have is we are going to see the return of the Halloween Rush Dungeon, or actually the Relay Dungeon rather, and that is going to be with Terrifying Zombie Rod. We have had this event in the past. This one's actually pretty fun, so it's nice to see that this one's back. So we will have this as well. So another thing to keep us busy. If memory serves, this wasn't a very particularly tough relay dungeon, so everybody should be able to get through this one without much of a problem for the most part. And then if we take a look here, we are going to be getting a bonus time event for Epic Quest Episode 2 and the weekly battle card dungeon. Now this is big news, you guys, because if you are like me and you have been hitting Epic Quest Episode 2 hard in hopes of getting to that final chapter, you will know that the AP cost is very real. So a lot of people have been asking for this. It does come with a bit of a catch, unfortunately. As you guys will see, the Epic Quest Episode 2 AP consumption decrease is going to only be running from 10:14 to 10:16, so we're only going to have a couple of days with this, and then we are also going to have the same type of event for the battle card dungeon from 10:17 to 10:19. So again, another 2-day event. It's very unfortunate that it is as short as it is, but it's nice that we're getting it, so it is what it is at that point. Make sure that you guys try to grind as much as possible for those 2 days and get as much out of that as you can. Now next up here, we are going to be getting a new season of Chapter of Fight. Not a lot to talk about there. Now when it comes to the Chapter of Fight season though, we are going to be getting those event missions where we can get those 100 rubies and those 2 rare enhancement hammers per day for playing it, so that's always really nice. But that is pretty much what we have in this tab. A lot of good information here, not much here that is going to be anything else we need to talk about though, so we can go ahead and move on to the next story here, because CM Yuri was one busy boy overnight. There's plenty of different tabs in here to click on and look at. So the next one we're going to look at here is the 1013 patch notice, and the reason why this one is so interesting is because we are going to be getting buffs to our previous Halloween characters. Both Halloween Gatecrasher Chris and Halloween Gatecrasher Alice are going to be getting buffed, so let's take a look at this real quick. Now what's actually really interesting and of note, because we're about to react to that dev video yesterday after we get done with this, but they did mention that they were going to be buffing these characters in that video. I did not expect it to come this quickly. I don't think anybody did, but hey, we'll take it. So Halloween Gatecrasher Alice here, she has a change being made to her core. So previously her core that dealt additional damage equal to 250% of attack upon landing a crit on a poisoned enemy on a cooldown of 5 seconds is still going to deal additional damage equal to 250% of attack, but this time it is going to be upon landing a hit to a poisoned enemy on a cooldown of 2 seconds. So basically what they did is they changed it from needing to land a crit to just needing to land a hit, and now it is going to be on a cooldown of 2 seconds and not 5 seconds. So that's a pretty nice little buff. We'll have to wait and see how that helps her in what regard when it comes to just general PvE, but I do think that that will be something that will be welcome for her. At this point, any buff is a good buff for some of these characters, so this is actually a really nice one. Taking away the need to crit is also nice because it makes it a lot easier to get that bonus damage, and you're also going to be able to do it more often on that lesser cooldown, so good stuff. You like to see it. Now next up, she is also going to be seeing a change made to Tumble Tumble, which is another one of her cores. So before, you were resetting the cooldown of the triple pumpkin shot and increasing the attack speed by 10% for 5 seconds upon using forward roll on a cooldown of 15 seconds. And now after the buff, it is going to give you 20% power charge rate at a 10 combo or more on a cooldown of 10 seconds. So she is going to be getting help for her power charge rate. This is another really nice buff for her. You'll love to see it, you guys. This character is one that I've almost got fully maxed out, so anything they want to do to her makes me happy, but we'll have to wait and see. I'll definitely be testing her out with these buffs to see how much it helps her. I don't think it's going to be making her a top tier character by any stretch of the imagination, but at the same time, you do like to see these old characters get buffed. Now next up here, she is also going to get a buff to her third skill, so her S3 is going to be getting a stun added to it, so stunning an enemy for 2 seconds upon landing a skill on her S3. So this is another really nice buff. Overall, I think that they did a lot of really good things for her kit. Time will tell just how much it helps her, but you like to see this type of stuff like I mentioned, so great stuff overall. Now we're going to go ahead and move over to Chris here and take a look at his buffs, because he also is going to be getting a lot of help. So let's take a look at what he's getting. So basically on his ha silly core, he is going to be getting an addition here to the PvP exclusive part of the core. So basically before you could petrify the attacker for 2 seconds when attacked while stunned on a cooldown of 15 seconds, and now it is going to read petrify the attacker for 2 seconds when attacked. So basically they are removing the criteria where you need to be stunned in order to get that petrify off. This is going to help him out quite a bit in PvP, I get the feeling. You always like to see those petrifies or those stuns in there as saves, so this is definitely going to help him, and it is still going to be on that same 15-second cooldown, so nothing else changes there. So this isn't going to be anything that'll affect him in PvE, but it'll definitely help him in PvP. And then finally on his S1, on his Shooting Dancer Stab, he is going to get the addition of a 70% chance to reset the cooldown upon landing a skill on a cooldown of 15 seconds. This is another really nice addition for him to get a reset on his cooldowns added. So in general, both of these characters are getting some love. You'll like to see all of this stuff for any of these characters anytime this stuff happens, especially when we're talking about characters who don't necessarily get as much love. But at the end of the day, you guys, we'll wait and see what happens with these. We'll definitely test these characters out with these new buffs and try them and see how these things affect them. But that's going to be what we can expect to see with the 10.13 update. So in the end, you guys, we still have to react to that dev video from yesterday. But if you already know everything in there and you've already seen all that, you can go ahead and click off now. And I appreciate you guys for watching, and I hope you hit that like button and subscribe on the way out. But if you want to stick around and check out my reaction to that dev video and get all that information, then we can go ahead and watch that together. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alright you guys, so let's go ahead and react to this. Now, it's kind of funny how I had so many people message me yesterday about this dev video asking for my opinions on this thing. Now, for those of you who haven't been around for the past couple of days, this week we've been working on tier lists for the King of Fighters Allstar on the channel, so I haven't necessarily had as much time to do other things, so I wasn't expecting all these updates this week. That's actually why I scheduled that for this week. So yeah, it is what it is, but let's watch this video. So the interesting thing I found about this video is the fact that they do introduce to us this guy right here, and the fact of the matter that he calls himself Nameless and wears the Nameless mask and is the person who is behind what they say in this video a lot is the fighter meta, or basically the guy who comes up with the skill effects and basically puts these characters together, all the things under the hood, like the nitty-gritty details of how their skills work and what their skills do. It seems like this is the guy that makes those decisions, and it's just funny to me that he would come on screen for the first time calling himself Nameless, considering the fact that he's the guy that we have to blame for the power creep more than likely. So it is what it is. I'm sure he has people pressuring him to do that stuff, but still, I digress. Like, come on, dude, it's hilarious. But yeah, the fact is that he does call himself Nameless. Now this is playing into the fact that Nameless apparently was the winner of that poll or that survey, whatever you want to call it, where they asked us who we wanted to see buffed from the old fest pool. So Nameless was, it sounds like, the winner across the world for all these different regions. So pretty interesting stuff. They point out the fact that while we did have runners up to these different lists that did vary from Ash to Mukai to Rock, which I'm super excited to see Rock get a buff, but in the end Nameless was the big winner across all of those, which was pretty interesting but not surprising. They say they were surprised, but I wasn't. It's pretty much obvious at this point that Nameless is a fan favorite. I mean, he's the edgy cool boy, so what do you expect, right? So they get into a couple of different things in this video though, and like I said, I've already watched this thing, so we're just going to kind of talk about my general thoughts on what happened in here. So they did talk about the fact that they were going to be buffing Halloween fighters. That's something we already know about now, that we have had an extra day in there and they've announced that, so we know that those characters are getting buffed and what those buffs are going to be. And then they go through in here and talk about some of the BS fighters from old BS banners are also going to be getting buffed. buffed. My assumption on that would basically be that we are going to be seeing Orochi as well as BS Rugal getting buffed, which would be really, really good for all of the people out there that have been complaining about Orochi needing a buff. Even though Orochi is a super solid character, he does leave a lot to be desired by comparison to a lot of the other boss syndrome characters. So it's a situation where it's nice to see that Netmarble recognizes the fact that not only are these fan favorite characters, but also at the same time, it's a situation where they also understand that people do invest into these characters on these limited banners, and to make sure that they are something that is going to be still relevant months later by buffing them more proactively than they do with some of these other characters is a really nice sign. I hope that this is something that Netmarble considers going forward, because these limited banner characters are a steep investment, especially for people who spend money on the game. So it's a situation where if they could find a good balance where they can stay on top of buffing those boss syndrome and those SS characters over time to keep them kind of relevant to the meta, not saying that they need to match the meta at a certain point, you know, you do want things to kind of shift and change eventually, but the way the meta has just continually turned itself over month after month is a little ridiculous. So they can do one of two things, right? Nameless here can either decide that he is going to peel it back and talk to whoever is making the calls and making him do these things and say, hey, can we stop with the power creep here a little bit? Or they could just go back and retroactively buff characters. So it's a situation where what can you do? Now, another big thing that they talk about in here is we are going to be probably getting new lady characters and new King of Fighters characters past King of Fighters 03. So yeah, you know, it's one of those things, right? Like, the lady fighters, I've always been lukewarm to. Like, there's certain lady fighters that I really, really like. Like, I really, really enjoy Lady Geese. I really enjoy Lady Maxima. I really like some of them. But then there's just, I don't know, like, for me, there's so many characters out there in the King of Fighters that need to have FES versions, that to go in and just be releasing lady versions of all these characters instead of getting to some of the other characters that still aren't represented in the FES pool is, I don't know, kind of not the greatest. But at the same time, I do recognize the fact that especially in their hometown in Korea, they are basically, the lady fighters are really popular. So it's one of those things where you want to keep the home crowd happy, but at the same time, also got to keep in mind that there is a fair bit of people out there that aren't necessarily the biggest fans of those. So I don't know, it's a give and a take. You can't please everybody, but it is a situation where I do hope that they do still roll out some new characters that we have been needing FES for, instead of just giving us lady versions, but I digress. So that is going to be that part of it. Again, I'm not super excited about it. And then characters past 03, I'm super down for. You know, at this point, I'll take anything that's King of Fighters related, although at the same time, I am still just going to be sitting over here waiting for FES King at some point, so it is what it is. But you know, as far as other things in here that they do talk about, they talk about how he tries to put these characters' effects together, how he tries to put these kits together. He says that he does try to keep it somewhat, you know, relevant to the characters from the actual game, and that's kind of his way that he starts from, and the backbone of what he does is he tries to keep these characters centered around their settings in the games, and then he tries to work from that. So that's of course something that you have to do with a game like this, so nothing too groundbreaking there, but otherwise he does talk about how he tries to balance these things and put these things together and see if they're in a good spot, how they run different tests and so on and so forth. So they do test these characters, believe it or not, before they release them. However, he doesn't really give us much information about how thorough that testing is either once they get that stuff put together, but you know, it is what it is. But in the end, I think that this was a pretty positive dev video. You know, getting to meet another member of the dev team is always nice. It's nice to get to know these guys and see where they're coming from and how they make the decisions behind the scenes with this stuff. But at the same time, there are some things in here that, I don't know, do leave me kind of wondering, you know, Is this stuff that I'm actually going to be excited for? Time will tell. I know a lot of people out there are really excited for some of the stuff that came out of this. You know, for me, the biggest thing is the fact that they are going to be going through, we already knew they were buffing Nameless and some of these other Fest fighters, but the fact that they are buffing the Boss Syndrome fighters, the older ones that is really exciting stuff for me. I'm really happy to see that they're trying to maintain the relevancy of some of those characters and keep them in the meta. So that's something that is really cool. And then I guess I'm happy for everybody that's a fan of the lady characters to be getting new lady characters at some point in the future. You know, that's something that I know a lot of people have really been waiting for and wanting again. So yay, we had a break, but now it sounds like we eventually are going to be getting more. So hopefully all of you out there who have been wanting your Lady Gonitz, well, you'll get her. So let's wait and see if it happens, but hopefully you do. And in the end, really the biggest thing here is I hope that Nameless ends up getting a really nice buff, because then all the Nameless fans out there that have been complaining about the fact that he has become so outdated can be happy again, or at least somewhat happy. From the sounds of it, this guy's a pretty big fan of Nameless himself, so he's in good hands from the sounds of it. In fact, they even make a joke about it. So it's one of those situations where if he ends up coming out of the gate being absolutely OP again, well, you know who to blame. So that is pretty much going to be it for today's video, you guys. Like I said, there isn't a whole lot more said in here that we need to necessarily talk too much about. I think we've pretty much hit the main points. You know, when I watched this yesterday, I really wanted to get to it yesterday, but unfortunately with my videos going on right now with the tier lists, I wasn't able to. Now, as far as the tier lists are concerned, I will be back to doing those hopefully tomorrow maybe, but I do have to cover the new updates, so it might not be until Friday, you guys, until we see another one, but that's okay. We'll get through them all. It's not a big deal. So it's just one of those things where we have to roll with the updates and roll with the punches, right? So anyway, you guys, that is going to be today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure that you smash that like button and subscribe for daily King of Fighters All-Star content, as we are still trying to reach 3,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and you could help us hit that. But that is going to be the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll talk to you all again real soon. You all take care. Peace.
Continue.